Hey, what team you got? Let's see. Let's see which one he picks.
We'll do the Titans.
All right. He didn't veer off. All right.
I'm gonna just stick with the Titans.
I know who I'm gonna get. It's all good.
Head coach Mike Vrabel. He's a really good regular season coach. When he gets to the playoffs, it doesn't happen for him. Last year, he had some injuries with the team, some big injuries. So that kind of set him back a little bit, but they still went 12-5, which, I mean, I didn't think they were going to go 12-5. So hats off to him for getting that record. But I just think that this year they've taken a step back, not a lot of steps backwards, but they've taken a few steps back, and the Colts have taken a lot of steps forward. That's the only thing this for this season. So I think Mike Vrabel is a really good coach, but this could be his toughest season, and we'll see what happens. Ryan Tannehill is a guy I've never really been high on. He's a middle of the road quarterback. I don't think he has much upside left. I think that's why they drafted Willis when they did. I just think they see something in him, and I know he's having a decent or really good preseason or whatever. I don't really care, but I just think he's going to be the starter there. Eventually, it might happen this year, it might happen next year, but I think the writing's on the wall for Ryan Tannehill. I think he's a middle of the road quarterback. I mean, he can play, but he's not a franchise type of quarterback there. So, unless Ryan Tannehill goes out this year and balls out and has like 35 touchdowns and like 8 picks or something like that, a really good touchdown to interception ratio, I just don't see it. Obviously the running back Derrick Henry, he was hurt last year, but when he's healthy, he's if not the best running back, he's top 2, top 3 as far as just pure running backs. He has gotten a lot of carries over his career, which is probably weighing on him. He's only 28 years old, and even last year he had before he got hurt, he still had 937 yards, almost 1,000 yards in the limited amount of time that he played. So with 10 touchdowns. So I expect big things from him again. Now he doesn't have the guy who replaced him for a little while in that backfield, and Foreman. But I think, and I don't think they can really lean on him every single down this year. I think they're going to have to spell him out a little bit more than what they have been doing over the last couple of years. I know Vrabel's like a really run-centric type of coach, which is fine. But I mean, you're going to have somebody else that can spell out Derrick Henry, at least to trying to save him over the course of the season, maybe into the playoffs, and definitely for years to come. So that's definitely a must. I think the wide receivers have definitely taken a step backwards. Julio Jones, I wasn't really high on. He was injury prone anyway, and he's just getting up there in age. But AJ Brown, a really young, promising wide receiver. He's one of the most talented wide receivers in the league, and they traded him on draft night. So you got a young rookie in return, so you kind of set that clock back as far as the contract goes in Treylon Burks. So maybe he can come in and step up and be that next AJ Brown. Maybe Robert Woods, who's still coming off an injury. He hasn't participated in full practice yet. I think he's done a little bit of 7-on-7s from what I've been reading. But Robert Woods, he could be a number one wide receiver. He just never. I don't think he's ever been a number one wide receiver. So this could be a time for him to step up when he does get healthy and try to come back and be that number one guy again. It's going to be difficult for him, I think, coming off this injury. So, but he can do it. I think he has the talent to be the number one guy. Austin Hooper hasn't been a really good tight end, or at least a decent tight end, since Atlanta. The last couple of years in Cleveland, he just, I don't know if it was the offense or if it was Baker Mayfield or whatever you want to do, whatever you want to call it, but it just wasn't clicking for him. So hopefully he'll go here, and Ryan Tannehill can use him. But Ryan Tannehill, he didn't use his tight end last year, so we'll see what happens here with this tight end, because I think Austin Hooper's he's underutilized, basically, in my opinion. Yeah, offensive line has been horrible. I think, in my opinion, I think they're a top 20, maybe 25 unit. Taylor Luan, I think he's coming off of, well, he had an injury back in 2020, and he hasn't been the same since. So if he can come back and bounce back and be that left tackle that he was before he got injured in 2020, I think the offensive line could be elevated. On the defensive side, though, you have Jeffrey Simmons, Harold Landry, Zach Cunningham, Bud Dupree. Like, these are all household name guys running in that 3-4. So I expect that at least the front seven to be the anchor of this defense, basically. I don't really have any low expectations for this defense. These are all really, really good guys. I really do like Jeffrey Simmons. I thought he should have been a Pro Bowler last year, right off the bat, but it is what it is. Harold Landry re-signed, so he's there for the long term, or at least for the next couple of years, 3 years, I believe. So, and I like Bud Dupree and Zach Cunningham. I think they're really good players. Caleb Farley, like, still waiting for him to emerge as that corner that they drafted in the first round. Last year? He didn't play a lot, so, but they knew that drafting him, so they took a chance on him, and now I guess they're pretty much waiting for his sophomore year for him to come out and show what he can do. But the rest of the guys, Hooker and Kevin Byard, I think are solid as well. As far as the whole dynamic of the team go, I think that the team goes as far as Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry can carry them. Even though I said I wouldn't lean on Derrick Henry on pretty much every carry, he's still the best player on this whole offensive unit. So, if not the whole team. So they're going to have to rely on him. And Ryan Tannehill, he doesn't have AJ Brown anymore. So that's going to be something he's going to have to get used to. And maybe when Robert Woods comes back and they can get Burks going, they'll have a solid group that he can rely on, even though they're not a real pass heavy team. But I know they went 12-5 last year. I expect a decent drop off. I'm going 9-8. I don't think they make the playoffs, but I think they're in that contention. I think they're in that group that can contend. Maybe a couple plays here and there, they go to 10-7. But I got a 9-8.
All right, Mo, Tennessee Titans.
Well, it's gonna be rough this year. Of course, Derrick Henry, bell cow, Tannehill. I think he's gonna be under a microscope this year. Everything he does, they're gonna say, well, they're gonna old Tannehill again. Some people might call for Malik Willis to go back in early. I can see them putting in a package for Malik Willis, like a Trey Lance type of thing where he's gonna play this year. Maybe not start unless Tannehill's hurt, but we're gonna see him a lot this year. Wide receiving core is rough. I think a lot of teams, I know what I would do, but if I'm a lot of teams, I'm playing one. I'm playing one high and I'm putting everybody in the box and I'm playing press. And I'm like, hey, if I'm gonna lose to Burks and a hurt what's the receiver name again? Woods.
Yep.
If I'm gonna lose to that, then I'm gonna be lost. I'm just gonna be a lost person. Tight end, offensive line, they lost like one or two of them. They lost a couple of them lost in free agency, right? They didn't resign. I think their best guard, I think left in free agency.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be a downgrade. You can't keep giving Henry the ball 30 times a game. He got beat up last year, came back off the foot injury, and I think he didn't really look the part in the playoff game. So I think he struggled in the playoff game. Defensive wise, they're always going to make plays. Mike Vrabel's always going to have them prepared. They're not going to lay down. They're always going to fly around the ball and make plays. Honestly, if you don't win this division, you're not getting it. I don't see two teams coming out of this division. I got Colts winning the division, so I see them maybe like Craig said, 9-8, or 9-8, maybe 9-8, maybe 10-7. They're lucky to play here and there, but I don't see them making the playoffs.
Man, all right, y'all might be very different than me. So yeah, different, man. So let's start off with the head coach. I like Mike Vrabel. I think it's a solid head coach, but I do agree this is going to be his biggest test. I think he's lost some offensive pieces. I think the defense is going to be great, but this is the point as we're starting to see the offensive shift to the offensive side of the ball. That's where you need to be really good at, especially the receivers. We're going to get to that later. So the move that they made in the draft might have come back to affect them, and I think it will in a big way. Okay, so all right, so Ryan Tannehill is Ryan Tannehill. I think that he's an average quarterback. I don't even know if I want to say average. Because I consider Kirk Cousins an average quarterback, and I think Kirk Cousins is better than him. That's just me. So okay, he's an average quarterback, but he's if Kirk Cousins is 15th, he's in that 16th, 17th range. That's just me. I think I think that he's good in spots, but he's lost a lot of weapons this year, and unfortunately, which was beknownst to him, it's probably a huge surprise to everybody. They traded AJ Brown, who was his number one target, which made no sense. I think he's going to get affected by it. Boom, running back Derrick Henry, one of the best in the NFL, man. But he had a lot of carries, and the numbers don't lie. The running back has over a certain amount of carries. I believe it's 400. The next year, you see a drop off, and here he got hurt. Even though he held he was number 1 and 2 in rushing for majority of the season, but he still got hurt. So this is going to be, I think it's going to be a bounce back year for him. I just, you don't want to lean on them, but they don't have anything else. They're going to have to lean on them. And if he gets hurt again, it's going to be like, oof, the receivers, Traylon Burks, I haven't really heard anything phenomenal out of training camp from him. I keep reading article after article, and there's no standout. Like, oh man, you know who stands out? The slot receiver, Kyle Phillips. But the Traylon Burks is just not standing out. Like you hear the rookie. Let's see what rookie receivers have been doing good. I've heard Olave, Drake London, but I just haven't heard Traylon Burks. Maybe I didn't read an article correctly, but I read a couple. He just didn't stand out, which is a problem. Robert Woods is hurt, and then the tight end you got Austin Hooper, he's a good tight end. But once again they let Jonnu Smith walk away in free agency. It's going to be tough. The offensive line, I think that they've been shuffling it at camp, and it's not as good as everybody thinks it is. And I think they're trying to figure it out, and that's not good when you have Derrick Henry as your only offensive weapon and a below-average quarterback in Tannehill. You need to have a strong offensive line, and they don't. So the defense is good. That's what we're going to count on. Jeffrey Simmons holding it down in the middle. The linebackers are good with Zach Cunningham, Harold Landry, and Bud Dupree coming off the edge. They're stellar. I do want to see Caleb. He had injury concerns in college and then got hurt ASAP. So let's see if he can put together a full season. It's already tough for a corner. Already, man, corners is probably the hardest position on defense to play because you're kind of on an island by yourself. So you gotta deal with. We joke all we want, but like an NFL receiver is hard to to check. So, and then they have one of the best free safeties in Kevin Byard. So I think their defense is good. So here's my overall prediction. I think they've lost too many pieces over the years, and they've lost two valuable offensive coordinators, right? The LaFleur, and then oh, I just had his name. Arthur, the head coach of the Falcons. So they lost two of the. What'd you say, Craig?
Arthur Smith.
Yes, Arthur Smith. Right? They've lost Jonnu Smith. They traded away AJ Brown. Right? Because they didn't want to pay him, but it seems like they had the money. But they traded away AJ Brown. Now they're struggling. The receivers are struggling in camp. Their offensive line is struggling in camp. And Derrick Henry's coming off an injury with Ryan Tannehill. No. I have them going. I think they're going to take a huge step back this year. They won a lot of games by Derrick Henry. They won games by the sole Derrick Henry. And then you had to respect Julio Jones and AJ Brown outside. You had to. Right? They don't have that this year. I got the Tennessee Titans going 7-10. Maybe lower, man.
Hey, James, just to make your point, yeah, you right. The division can be wrapped up real early because they play the Colts twice within the first 6 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
So if
Why
you
did
go
the NFL do that
you,
again?
Huh?
Why did the NFL do that again? They did the same thing
spread it
last
out.
year. By the time October was over, they had played their 2 games. They're the only 2 teams that can win the South. Like,
Yeah,
come
they
on,
should
NFL,
put
do
them.
better.
They should put them at the end.
Yeah, they play October 2nd and then play again October 23rd.
Yeah. All right, Corey, the Titans.
All right. For the Titans, I think I'm a little lower on Vrabel than everyone else myself. I think he's a solid coach. I think he did kind of turn things around in Tennessee from when he took over, but I feel like the attitude he has instilled in that team is that of the fake tough guy, the guy that's ready to go start something, but as soon as he starts something is looking for people to throw in between him and the guy he started stuff with.
Oh man.
It's just that it feels like the players do some childish stuff, kind of what last year, the year before, like before the Ravens game, stomping on the logo. So they chirp a lot during the games, and I think they occasionally they'll take a cheap shot. But it is what it is. Offensively, I think Tennessee is set themselves up to be more reliant on Derrick Henry than they have at any point in the last 3 years. And I think that is very dangerous to do with a 28-year-old running back who missed a good chunk of last season with an injury, who after, I know we had been talking the last 2 seasons, his usage was unsustainable. I think that his just being a physical freak allowed him to survive longer than the average NFL player would, but it wasn't sustainable. And how does he bounce back from that? We'll see. But I don't understand how the hell does the Titans, a team that's needed to find some sort of other running back option for 3 years now, not the year after Derrick Henry goes down, bring in a legit number 2 running back to help your backfield.
They could have got Philip Lindsay.
Yes, Philip Lindsay signed with the Colts to be at best the number 3 running back.
Could have fit perfect there.
Absolutely. A similar play style, hard-nosed runner like Derrick Henry, he would have been a perfect complement for the Titans. And they didn't go get him. And Philip Lindsay was around for a while because that's how the Colts got him. I do not understand their lack of desire. I mean, Deontay Foreman played a couple of good games for them last year. How is he not back?
I don't
What are you doing there? But honestly, speaking of questionable roster decisions, they traded AJ Brown. Why? On the field, he was your number one wide receiver. Depending on how Derrick Henry looks at this stage in his career, he may have been your best offensive player this season on your roster. And they shipped him off for some dumb reason. Personally, I also wonder, what message is that GM sending to his locker room? Because you have a guy in AJ Brown who fell in the draft. The Titans were able to get a steal in the second round with him. Massively outperformed his rookie contract, was a dominant player for your offense, and you ship him off instead of paying him. And I do think that it is a bit of a disparity between how the Titans have operated and Chris Ballard and the Colts. Chris Ballard got dogged by fans and media alike for not paying big money in free agency when they had cap space. But instead, when the guys he's drafted have come up for new contracts, he's rewarded his guys with new contracts and he's kept them around. And the locker room notices that stuff. So when you have a guy that has earned a payday and you ship him off instead of paying him, I think it says a bad message to that locker room, and it could potentially cause you some problems down the line as well. They brought in Robert Woods, and I think Robert Woods would have been a great number 2 piece opposite AJ Brown. Julio didn't really do much for you last year. He spent much of the year hurt. Essentially every concern that you had about Julio Jones going into the season, he lived up to. But Robert Woods, I think, is a really, really good number 2 wide receiver. He's a good blocker, which is great for a team that runs the football, and he would take some pressure off of AJ Brown. Instead, they traded AJ Brown, and they're asking Woods to take over the number 2 or the number 1 role coming off an ACL injury, and that's asking a lot. And I don't like their depth behind Robert Woods. I said Burks had a really slow start to camp. Even like mini camps and stuff coming out of the draft, there were a lot of question marks about his conditioning. He's not really stood out or anything. A number of rookie wide receivers have stood out in camp. Guys like Chris Olave, Alec Pierce, and Burks is just there. They were betting big that Burks was going to be the next AJ Brown, and he's not living up to it. And I think that could be a big detriment to them because there's just not much depth behind them beyond that. I think they're in a situation where, they've brought in Austin Hooper as tight end, and they're essentially going to need Austin Hooper to do more at the position that he's really produced in his career. So you hope he can have a career year, but that's asking a lot.
Yeah.
They have Ryan Tannehill. Whether or not that's a good thing is a toss-up. Yes, Tannehill kind of stabilized the quarterback position because Mariota is very inconsistent. He gave them more consistent play, actually put them into a place where they could be a contender, working off the play action from Derrick Henry. But Ryan Tannehill has a ceiling. He has hit it with the Titans. I think Tennessee needed to be aggressive to try and replace Ryan Tannehill with somebody that could actually help them take that next step. Instead, they downgraded at the weapons around him. I think the offensive line's a little worse than it was last year. And while Malik Willis is interesting for the future of the Titans, and I think is a worthwhile gamble for them, I don't think it does anything for them this year outside of, as I think Mo said, maybe a couple of plays a game as a change of pace quarterback. Defensively, I will say Jeffrey Simmons and Kevin Byard are legit. They are really good football players.
Yeah.
They've got some other solid pieces, but I think they're relying heavily on Caleb Farley to stay healthy. And as you pointed out, James, he had issues staying healthy in Virginia. That was a big knock on him coming out of the draft. It's why he started to fall a bit, and then he couldn't stay healthy his rookie year. I hope for him that he's able to stay on the field, stay healthy, and be productive. But it's a big gamble for that secondary. I think they They spent big money on Bud Dupree. They spent a pretty big money keeping Harold Landry. I think they kind of overspent on both of those guys a little bit for the level of production that they're getting in return. Personally, I think the defense outperformed last year what many people expected. We'll see if they can repeat that performance, and I'm just not sold that they can, especially because I think the offense isn't going to be quite as good. I don't think they're going to stay on the field and keep the defense as fresh as they did last year. I think the offensive struggles could have a compounding effect on the defense. Overall, I just think that their roster on a whole got worse. And in an AFC that is absolutely stacked, and a conference on the whole got better. Their division rival in Indianapolis got better. I think that they're in a position that the AFC South is only putting in one playoff team. I think their window to make a legit run may have been last season, but then Derrick Henry got hurt, and that closed the window. I think Indy's ahead of them talent wise. I will say when picking games, I still had them at 10 wins. But looking at their roster on a whole for this breakdown, without Derrick Henry going and putting up a LaDainian Tomlinson, Adrian Peterson level MVP caliber season, I just don't see them getting to that win level. It wouldn't surprise me if they finish with fewer than 10 wins this year. I'm not sure what direction the franchise is heading after this offseason.
Yeah, man, they were tripping. They could have signed AJ Brown back too.
Yeah, the deal that Philly gave him was essentially the same deal that all of the wide receivers in that draft class got, and all of those receivers deserved.
All of DK, Terry McLaurin, AJ, they all got the same deal. I don't know why they.
Yeah, you knew it was coming. Pay him.
Yeah, because if they brought AJ Brown back, and they could have probably still got Robert Woods. Now we're talking about all right, Colts.
Yes, AJ Brown on this roster makes that offense very different.
Yeah,
because I think Cooper gives you more than they got from their tight end position last year.
Yep.
I think Robert Woods would give you significantly more than Julio Jones gave you opposite of AJ Brown.
Yep.
And if you could potentially, Derrick Henry is a giant question mark, I think, just because of the health and the wear and tear and the usage. But you wouldn't have to rely on Henry as much if you had AJ Brown.
Yeah. Well, that's crazy.